Thank you for listening to our daily Bible reading lesson. The lesson today is God's Tear Bottle. You know, one of the songs that it's a beautiful song, but it's one we hear generally whenever times are not going well. Most of the time we hear it is at funerals. Song number 132 in our book is Does Jesus Care? Does Jesus care when my heart is pained too deeply for mirth and song? As the burdens press, the cares distress, and the way grows weary and long. The chorus goes on and extols the fact. We know he cares. And that's something we need to be assured of. In our reading yesterday in Psalm 56, there's much being done in other parts of the reading, but there in Psalm 56, we find, of course, that David is still in dire straits. As a matter of fact, he's being held captive by the Philistines, and in all places, Gath. Not a good place if you'd killed their giant. But here he is speaking about the things that have come upon him. Man would swallow me up. They are fighting daily. They oppress him and such in verse 1. But David is one who sets forth his trust in God time and time again. But in verse 8, he sets forth the truth that we all need to know. He says, Put thou my tears in thy bottle, are they not in thy book? You know, David, whenever he faced those things, he needed to know God cares. People around him may not, and sometimes we feel that way. You know, people don't understand, people don't know, people don't really understand what I'm going through. But David, he knew that God understood. And what he did was he made reference to a practice that was in the Far East of tear bottles. They're called, I think, lacrimatories is what the word that oftentimes is used is, but I'll stick with tear bottles. Seem to be good enough for God's inspired word. But the practice was that whenever someone died, that the people that loved him, and maybe in times of other sorrow, they would take a bottle and they would collect the tears and they would keep them in there. And then the burial sites, some of them had been found with these tear bottles in there. And so what David is giving the reference to is that God keeps a tear bottle, keeps it for you and I. So whenever we think, you know, does anybody care? I know he cares. God has a tear bottle for you and I. You look and you find his understanding, his compassion, his concern is set forth in that analogy that the psalmist gives. Of course, throughout God's word, we find he cares. But, you know, more than that, in the book of Revelation, we find that we long for and desire that time in which there will be no more tears, no more sorrow, no more pain. You see, God knows what we're going through. He understands the sorrow we have. He understands the tear we shed. And he has a bottle for you and I to put those tears in. But more than that, he knows that one day he will be with us and wipe away all tears. What a glorious thing that is. The assurance as we go through life that God has a tear bottle for you and I. So we know he cares. Gives more assurance to us that as we face the trials, the struggles, the sorrows that will come upon all of us, that as Peter said, cast your cares upon him, for he careth for you. Sometimes, maybe if you see a little bottle sitting someplace, might remind you and me both, God has a tear bottle. He cares. He knows. He understands. You have a great day. Cast your cares on him. He cares for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you again for joining us in this Bible study. We remind you, if you'd like to follow along in our daily Bible reading, the link below in the description of this video will give you the PDF so you can read right along with us. If you have any other questions or if you'd like information on a Bible study, contact us with the information provided on the screen before you.